Hello. I thought I'd pop on and chat a little bit about English paper piecing. You know I love it. I find it very calming, very soothing, very mindful. Doesn't take much thought really, and it's very, very portable. You can have a little pouch with some bits in, and wherever you are, sitting waiting for a pickup for somebody, you know, sitting waiting for an appointment somewhere, you can always do a little bit of stitching. I do all my machine sewing out here during the day, and then when I go in the afternoon, I could sew all evening, but I think my husband would get fed up being in the house on his own. So in the evening I go inside, but I need something to do with my hands. So I crochet sometimes, but I'm heavily into English paper piecing at the moment, which you'll know if you follow me because I'm doing some block of the months, which is English paper pieced. But there's always a debate. Now, I'm a firm believer in do what suits you. There are no real rules. When years and years ago, when I was a child, and I was taught English paper piecing, you used to get your, you'd have your template and you'd have your bit of fabric and you would fold it over and you would stitch through the paper all the way around to tack the fabric onto your shape. And it was always a pain for me because you'd do that. So you'd stitch all around, you'd then sew all your pieces together, and then you had to sit and unpick all the stitching because it was showing through on the front. And then you had to remove all the papers. So it made it very long-winded and it would put me off. Then I discovered what they now call thread basting. And you literally just stitch on the back and stitch the corners together all the way around. And you can leave that in actually. You don't have to then unpick it. So although it takes a little bit longer, sometimes people say, oh, I don't like thread basting because it feels I'm sewing it twice. But it's, I mean, on a hexagon, it's 6 stitches in at each corner, a stitch or 2 at each corner. So it's 6 or 12 stitches. It doesn't take long to do 6 or 12 stitches. It probably takes you the same amount of time to glue baste. But for some reason, we all think glue basting is faster. Saying there are no rules is probably not 100% true because there are a couple of rules with glue basting. Because if you get it right on the edge of the paper, the fabric sticks and then you don't have that loose bit where you can get your needle through. But I will take you through that soon. So I use, a lot of people use the sew line pen and it's great. I found it stuck a bit too much when I wanted to release my papers, and it's an expensive way to do it. In America, you have Elmer's glue stick, which I think is readily available, cheap and cheerful, and it does the job. And it's washable and won't hurt your fabrics. But over here, we don't have that. And if we do, you have to go to a quilt shop to get it. And then, of course, you're charged far more than it would be if it was just in a craft shop, you know, just a stationery shop, which is always the way, isn't it? The minute it goes into a quilt shop, it's the price goes up because it's just the way things are. If they find a niche for something, then the price goes up. It's a bit like pink tools. When everyone wanted pink tools, the pink tools were more expensive than the others for some reason. But anyway, I use this Basting blue glue stick, which is readily available on Amazon. And it's fairly cost effective. It washes out. I also find it releases nice and easily. When I'm about to take my papers out, I just give my shape a press, that final press before the end, And when the glue is warm, the fabric just lifts off away, and you can pop your papers out. But it is strong enough that it can hold them for a fair while before you have to remove them. So that's glue basting, and then there's thread basting, good old thread basting. I just use any old thread I've got and do that. And some fabrics I think lean better to thread basting than glue basting, but it really is personal choice. I tend to just glue baste most things. I have thread basted if I just wanted to, I don't know, I'll glue baste if I'm a little bit tight on fabric, if I just needed to get that little bit out. Because thread bait, you don't want to put a needle through if you haven't got much of a seam allowance, because it could quite easily pull out. But it really is personal choice, and there's no right or wrong way. I'm a firm believer that to enjoy your hobby, you do what suits you. So I'm going to take you through thread basting and glue basting. So if you are new and you're not sure, and a lot of people will say, oh no, I don't like glue basting, and then you might think, oh, maybe I shouldn't do that. I'm going to show you how they're both done, and you can try them both and see what suits you, or see what suits your fabric. Whatever way works for you is the correct way, I believe. Sewing should be enjoyed. It should never become a chore, because then we don't enjoy it, and we don't get out of it what we can get out of it, which is just nice feelings, nice peaceful time, some quiet time to yourself, some time to think, the feelings of achieving something when you've done it, of seeing that end result and being proud of what you've made. For me, that's what sewing is all about. Even if I'm making an order for someone, I still enjoy every moment of the process. And then there's no greater reward than when you give it to them and they absolutely love it. That's what it's all about for me. I'd hate to feel it had become a chore, something I have to do. So anyway, let's show you the different ways to glue based and thread based. Okay, so here we are. I've got two, they're not hexagons actually, I've got two octagons. So I'm going to glue baste this one, and literally a little bit along the edge, not right to the edge of the paper, a little bit on the fabric just to hold those ends down. Push it over, stick, turn. Always keep turning in the same direction, just so everything's neat. All your if you have got a shape that's got points, it will be nice and neat. They'll all go in the same way if you get any tails on triangles or anything like that. And you literally just glue and stick, glue and stick. That's all we need to do for this one. So it's quite easy. I'm being a bit awkward because I'm trying to keep it all in shot of the camera. But you can see how easy and portable it is. And then the last one, a little bit there, a little bit there. There we are. That one is glue basted. Oh, I've centered that quite nicely. There we go. That will do. There's that one. Let me put my lid on. So that's your glue basting. And now thread basting. I've only got actually my very fine needle for my actual piecing out here. My bigger needles, they're in a bag somewhere from when I was at my retreat. So you literally fold over there. I have put a little knot in my thread, and you don't go through the paper, you just go through the fabric, and it's 1, 2. If you're going to leave the threads in, don't knot it. just do a 2 or 3 stitches on the spot to anchor it. And you just literally come across to the next corner, 1 stitch, 2 stitches just to anchor it. Next corner, one stitch, 2 stitches. Next corner, fold it down. I find thread basting harder if I've fussy cut my fabric, because as you can see, it can move and shift a little bit as you thread baste. If you haven't fussy cut, then thread basting, I think, for me anyway, it's okay. But that's why I chose to glue this one, because I was hoping to keep that as central as I possibly could. And I knew it would move if I thread basted, and then I would have been annoyed and I would have had to have undone it and redone it with glue, because I know once, if the glue's on there, it is set in exactly the position I want it. So when I especially glue baste when I fussy cut. The good thing about thread basting is if all you've got is your needle and thread and some shapes, you can still go ahead and baste them. You don't have to take glue out, or if you've left your glue behind, or if you've run out of glue, you can just still carry on with thread basting. And the last one, we come up here, couple of threads. I'll do 3 on this one just to anchor it, because I'm going to cut the thread off. 1, 2, 3, and there we have it. And that one has been thread basted. And you can see the difference. Glue basting, it's tighter, which if you pull it too tight, you don't leave yourself enough to go through at the edge of the paper. This one, you can see it's looser, so it's easier to sew together, to sew through. But I wonder, are these the same size? No, one's just slightly smaller, but you know, it's personal choice. Some fabrics will work better for it. If you're thread basting, if I'm glue basting, I don't always press my fabrics because it's just held nice and firm. But if I'm thread basting, I will always press my fabrics just to make sure there's no big creases, which I wouldn't be able to smooth out with thread basting. So that is your 2 choices. Try them both, see what one works for you, and yeah, just play around and see. Some, you know, I prefer glue basting, especially if I've got bits like this, shapes like this, where you've got a little tail. Sometimes that gets caught up in the thread. But I always try to, triangles like this, you can't odds but have a tail, but when I've got a shape like this, I sort of baste it so I don't have any bits sticking out. But yeah, and if you were appliquing this on, you would just tuck it underneath as you applique around the edge. You know, with the point of your needle, you can get it tucked underneath and it's all fine. But yes, so that is the difference. That one you don't have to undo the threads. You can just pop the papers out when you've sewn them all together and you've given it a nice press. You can just pop the papers out. This one I always give them a press, and when it's warm, it literally just lifts up, and just lift it up, and out pops the paper. So that is your difference. Have a try. Let me know what you prefer and what the reasons are what you prefer. I'm always interested as to why people do things the way they do. Okay.